Well, then the tax base goes down. Well, then the schools aren't supported. Well, then people don't want to live there and they leave, or they rent the houses and they're not upkept. And so it starts a spiral of downward economic movement that affects everybody. And even if you're there and you're the last house on the street and you've been paying your mortgage, and all of a sudden you owe $100,000 in your house and it's only worth $30,000 now, it doesn't make any economic sense for you to stay. You're forced to walk away, even though you're, other than doing the right thing and paying for what you promised to pay for, you're still throwing money down a hole that you'll never get back. And so people started walking away. And this is how it happened. So we have a vacancy crisis. Everything, again, you see bad that happens on the news happens in one of these houses. Crime, drugs. There was no demolition funding available. Trees in the community, which are a huge asset to community. There's studies that prove that communities that have trees and communities that don't have trees have vastly different economic results. And then you've got a bunch of politics, city and county politics, and then regional politics that affect this. These are the challenges of our urban community. This started in Cleveland, but it's the same story throughout the Rust Belt. It's the same story in Youngstown and Akron. This happened everywhere in a lot of cities throughout Ohio. And we decided to try to take a look at it and see what we could do. So I like this series of slides here. This first slide here is 2000. These are the density of sheriff sales in Cuyahoga County. And you're looking at numbers that are in the darker areas here that are probably 40 houses per square mile that are going up for sheriff sale in 2000, 2003, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009 are interesting to me. Here's 2007, but here's 2008, 2009. It's like a bomb going off. I mean, if it wasn't as tragic as it was, it's fascinating to look at these numbers. But in 2008 and 2009, the community actually ran out of houses to foreclose on in sheriff sale. So the numbers actually dipped a little bit because there wasn't as much stock and inventory. So to look at the whole thing between 2000 and 2010, this is what happened to Cleveland. This is what you see on the news. This is why this happened. All these foreclosures happened on everybody's street, and whether or not people were doing the right thing or not, they lost the value of their houses. They were completely underwater. And people that had paid their mortgages for 30 years lost everything. And they decided to get out. People that could get out, got out. People that wanted to get out but couldn't get out were stuck there, and they have to deal with these circumstances, these communities that don't have great schools, that don't have great community infrastructure and inadequate policing and fire. These are the problems that happen, and this is all because of predatory lending and the foreclosure crisis. So that's what it looked like. So guess where they went? Well, they went outside of that area. So if we look at the outer ring tax burden here, it shifted from 2000 to 2012. We see a 5% shift in the people that are paying the taxes. So everything went from 45 million to 55 million. That with inner ring tax revenues, they shifted over to the outer ring. So that put more pressure on people outside of the community in better communities like Pepper Pike and Orange, and these communities that have folks that had better setups in terms of communities and wealth. They were able to be insulated, but their taxes went up so high that they said, I'm done with Cuyahoga County. Even though everything was going well for them, they jumped over to Geauga County, moved to places like Bainbridge and Russell and Chesterland and Willoughby and Mentor and Concord. This is where everybody came from. This is why they went from there, because they knew that either it was coming or it was just going to be so high in terms of taxes that it wasn't worth staying. And so that's a sad fact as well. So 2011, we formed the Thriving Communities Institute to extend the Land Conservancy's mission into urban areas. So this is way outside the box in terms of a land trust. Typically we protect farms and natural areas, create parks, but we decided that if we could stop this from happening, we could stop that bomb from going off, we could focus redevelopment back on the urban cores, that would help our mission of protecting spaces that were in danger outside of the urban areas. So we established land banks throughout the WRLC footprint, and it became so popular then other counties throughout the state wanted us to do that as well. we set up these land banks in other places, and we'll talk about land banks in a second. We started seeking funding for demolition and rehabilitation of blighted properties. We have just started in the last couple of years to restore Cleveland's tree canopy program. This again is to plant trees on some of these areas that are being restored. And then we still continue to lobby state and federal. We have our own PAC that we use in Columbus, and they lobby for us in DC to funnel state and federal dollars towards the programs that we would like to see have. And those are both conservation programs and also these urban revitalization programs that are critical to the revitalization of Ohio and the urban communities. So it's not just Cuyahoga County. There's 100,000 vacant houses and distressed properties in Ohio cities. These are just residential houses in Ohio. This is Steubenville, this is Toledo, this is Dayton, this is Cincinnati. This is all over the place. This isn't just something that happened in Cleveland. It's $1 billion problem and residential only. I mean, there's still a whole commercial and industrial problem out there as well, but just the residential part of it's $1 billion loss for the state. And so we decided to set up a land bank. So what is a land bank? Land bank is a not-for-profit organization, not a county agency, although it's kind of quasi-county, created by the government, but again, it's not government. We worked through and actually wrote different revised codes at the state legislator's office to get these implemented, and they're committed to a public purpose. So the benefit of these land banks, first of all, they take control of vacant and abandoned houses that are tax delinquent. We're not just taking houses, it's only the ones that haven't paid their taxes. What happened was people were walking away from homes, speculators were buying homes for $1,000 and then trying to flip them for $1,500. They'd buy 50 homes and flip them, but nobody was living in them, nobody was taking care of them, the property values continued to drop. So it makes it difficult for speculators, reduces the flipping, it repurposes the properties. Either we demo the house and get it back to grass so that bad things can happen inside that boarded up house, or the house is rehabilitated, so it's one or the other. We collect these, and sometimes the land banks will demo a house and give it to the neighbor. Great, you know, it's back on the tax roll, it works out well. Sometimes a collection of houses in a neighborhood are bought by a developer and they put new houses up. Sometimes that collection of houses are completely demoed in a neighborhood and it becomes a central park for the houses around that and create open space access that again is back on the tax roll and doing good instead of, you know, immensely bad things. So that's what land banks do. 2008, Cuyahoga County had the first one. It got up and going in 2009. In 2010, we lobbied to have the laws amended so that counties, at first only certain counties could do this, and so we had it amended so that counties that had at least 60,000 people could apply for, you know, having a land bank or land bank status. And then in 2015, the laws were finally passed so that all 88 counties were eligible for land banks. So anybody that wanted them, wanted them. So Jim Rokakis and his team at TCI have now protected, at least through 2016, 40 county land banks throughout the state. And these land banks are doing the work of getting things back to grass. We're demoing properties. We're bringing funds to the table to make sure these areas are at least back to zero. We're going from negative 50 or wherever they were when they were dilapidated houses and boarded up, and we're back to zero. So here's the funding that we've raised to date for the land banks, and this is the Conservancy has led the drive on bringing these state and federal dollars to the table. $410 million, because having a land bank and having a land bank with properties is one thing, but actually having the funds to demo these houses is another thing. So $410 million we've been able to bring from some of the you know, Fannie Freddie funds and all the hardest hit funds that came through the federal levels. These all came to Ohio, and these now support the land bank and the demolition of these houses and getting things back to zero. So once they're back to zero, let's plant some trees. Cleveland's the forest city, right? And so we're working with Cleveland and a lot of their forest initiatives now. The goal is to plant 700,000 trees in Cleveland and return that back to the forest city. Give folks the beauty, you know, that we all enjoy here in Cuyahoga County of trees everywhere. That's not the norm there, and you know, these are much better than looking at some of those houses, and they have a host of benefits that come with them, including, you know, global cooling or urban cooling and water quality, as well as just general aesthetics and property value. Again, these beef up those property values, get those back up to where they should be in some of these communities for the folks that are still there. And also promote redevelopment and repopulation of these urban cores so that we're not having the pressure of development out here in Geauga County. So switching gears now, I'm going to land protection. So that was our urban program. Our traditional program is land protection, and we've done that very well. We've done that for 15 or 20 years now collectively. The tools that we use are conservation easements, agricultural easements, the creation of parks, so acquisition